Welcome to the Masterclass looking into Shockwave and chronic tendinopathy. There's been a lot of interest in Shockwave in the last 5 to 10 years. Most guidelines recommend that when traditional rehabilitation have failed, it's a safe, non-invasive option. It's really important to sort of separate the science from the marketing, and that's the aim of the presentation here, is to give you sort of a general overview. Disclaimer here, I'm involved with education with Stores UK, which is sort of Ven Healthcare was a distributor since January 2020, but this topic and all the content here is entirely done by me, and there is no other conflict of interest for this talk. So let's set the scene by looking at tendinopathy. So tendinopathy, as we know, is a complex condition, involves a lot of pathological changes. So this is sort of a diagram looking into a healthy tendon and also with tendinopathy. So tendinopathy is a combination of pain, structural changes on imaging, and also impaired function. Questions which people ask me is, why am I getting this pain? And it's not a simple answer here. And it's useful to use a sort of a visual picture like this to sort of explain the process of tendinopathy. We really don't know where the source of pain is. And many times when I see patient, for example, if I get a runner with, suppose like a 45-year-old runner who comes to me with a left Achilles pain, and I scan them and I'm seeing all the pathological changes, I also see on the right side similar changes as well. So we see many cases the presentation is bilateral on imaging, but they tend to have more pain or only pain on one side. So it's very hard to explain this to patient, why is only one side more painful when structurally it looks the same. If you look in a more active population, so if you look at my private clinic, I would say the most common tendinopathy I see is Achilles. There is no doubt about that. That's the most common sort of chronic cases which you see in a more active patient. But if you look at a more general MSK setting, like a primary care or a GP practice, this is a Dutch study which looked at prevalence of lower limb tendinopathy in a Dutch general practice by Albers et al. In 2016. And what they found was the most common self-reported tendinopathy was greater trochanteric pain syndrome. A model I love is this sort of classical model from Jill Cook, where she looks into this sort of reactive stage, and then it's sort of where you have initially like a flare-up and quite severe pain, and then it leading to tendon disrepair and degenerative changes. So I think when we give a Shockwave, which I'll be talking soon, we want to avoid a Shockwave, especially radial Shockwave in that reactive stage. So generally we want to use it for patients whose symptoms is more than 3 months. So when you look into the loading protocols, which is sort of mentioned in the literature, there is, we know that exercise works really well. And this is sort of a good systematic review which looked into what is the ideal way to sort of load this patient. So we know that it should be minimum of 12 weeks. And we know that one is not better than the other. It could be eccentric, it could be heavy slow resistance training. There is the Silverknuckle loading. So as long as we, progressively load the tendon and have a pain monitoring model, we see there's changes in pain and function, usually around the 12-week mark. And so there's a significant proportion of patients who would not respond because of health reasons, training factors, or maybe it's because it doesn't work for them. So like with any modality, we know that there is a proportion of patients who will not respond, and that's same like drugs, it's also true for Shockwave. So this is sort of a patient where I would really, suggest Shockwave, because he has tried everything. It's not massively irritable. His symptoms are stable, but he's not able to push into the next level. So this is sort of where we have to think of options beyond traditional loading protocol. So if you Google Shockwave, you can be surprised to know there's a wide variety of patient groups who reach Shockwave. Of course, my experience is only in MSK, but you can see that it's used in lithotripsy, which is for breaking kidney stones. It's also used for in horses and dogs for tendon issues. It's also used for skin conditions like cellulite, and also other areas. It's also used in cardiac, and also used in urology for men's health and women's health as well. So clearly it's got huge application and it's safe. But 95% of the clinics in the UK and everywhere I go tend to have access to radial. So that's why we tend to focus on this modality, which is quite safe. So both are sound waves. Both need an ultrasound gel, and both have been shown to be effective in musculoskeletal disorders. But there are key differences. For purpose of today, we won't be covering, but we'll be looking into the radial predominantly. The key question people ask is, how does Shockwave work? So clearly, that's an important element which we need to discuss with the patients. And what we know from the research is it works in multiple mechanisms. One of the key mechanisms by it works is it creates cavitation through mechanotransduction. Mechanotransduction is a process by which your body is able to convert energy, like for example sound energy, into biological healing. So one of the ways I explain to patient is I'm using sound energy to kickstart healing. It improves the fibroblastic and osteoblastic activity, and the key factor here is it creates new blood vessels called neoangiogenesis, and that is really important to stimulate for improving collagen synthesis, which is a key driving building blocks of tissues like tendon. And although it's been around for 40 years, we're seeing a huge increase in popularity in the last 10 years in MSK. And there could be many reasons. A key factor, which I will not mention on the slide, is also the cost. Historically, about 10 years ago, these machines used to be very expensive and tend to be very big, cumbersome, and very hard to sort of move around. Now we get portable units. I have a portable unit in my clinic, and it's easy to transport between two places. And also what we see is also it leads to quick resolution of symptoms. People don't want to go in for steroid injections and long recovery following injections like PRP, which can be much expensive. And also patients want to get them into rehabilitation and early return to running or sports. So when you look into sort of the advantages and the benefit of Shockwave, it's quick recovery, early return to sporting activity, and also improved compliance as well, which is important. It's very safe, and the NICE guidelines have shown that it to be very safe for things like plantar fasciitis, Achilles. The NICE is the National Institute of Healthcare and Excellence, which is sort of a key body which looks into the clinical evidence and also recommendations in the UK. And when you look into another systematic review, which was published in American Journal of Sports Medicine 2015 by Manibabu et al. It's coming, I think, from London, from Queen Mary's University, and they looked at tendon specifically, and they found Shockwave was very effective for GTPS, patellar tendon, and Achilles tendon, and there was again no report of any adverse effects in those cases as well. So what are the key risk factors which leads to Achilles tendon tendinopathy? We can put them into two groups, intrinsic and eccentric. Intrinsic is internal factors like previous injuries or previous conditions. So if you had Achilles tendon before, you're more likely to happen. We know that increasing age, more than 40, gender, men are more likely to develop, increased BMI and high cholesterol, muscle weakness, adiposity, both type 1 and type 2, certain biomechanical changes, and certain medications, certain antibiotics. And we know that diabetes has a big effect on tendon healing. So type 2 diabetes increases your risk of tendinopathy by 4 times, and your risk of tendon or rupture is increased by 5 times. And also there's a combination of collagen matrix organization, reduced healing, and amplified scar tissue. So those patients, it's really important that we manage systemic symptoms and just not load. And those patients take longer to recover. So this is sort of flow chart which is taken from one of the articles which I tend to show patients. So a patient comes in with chronic Achilles tendon pain. We're going to start with simple, straightforward things which we know works. Good loading protocol, which is the core strategy. And you might also want to add some adjuncts, for example, like some inserts. I'm a big fan of using heel inserts. It's around 9 to 10 millimeters, and that will work with majority of patients if we are patient enough for 12 weeks. So most patients will respond to a good standard rehabilitation program if you follow a patient-centric approach. After 12 to 18 weeks, you've done the rehab, the patient is still in a lot of pain, then you have two options. In 1 year, it might not be massively different, but if you're struggling with pain here and now, then having a Shockwave is a fantastic desensitization tool, which is quite useful to help us reduce the pain. And also, at the end of the day, it's all about getting them back stronger and load the tendon. And Shockwave is a modality which will help you to do that, to do the exercise with less pain so that they can take more load, and then we can have more tendon adaptation. And when you look into the studies, when you compare exercise with Shockwave and exercise, we know exercise is the gold standard, and in the long term, exercise stands superior. And this study is an RCT which compared 3 modalities. They looked at a single steroid injection, course of exercises, and I think 4 or 5 sessions of radial shockwave. And what we found was the steroid was brilliant in the first month. The last condition I'm going to go through today is tennis elbow, a very common chronic tendinopathy in upper limb, much more common than golfer's elbow. And what we know here is for tennis elbow, no such thing as a quick fix. We know that corticosteroids leads to quick immediate changes. So patients who have steroid injections from primary care tend to report that they're really better in 4 to 6 weeks, but we know that it leads to worsening, and 1 year they're worse off than no treatment at all. And this is a condition where I like to look with an ultrasound and look at grading here. This looks at the neovascularity. So this is sort of a grayscale view of the common extensor origin. Here you can see the tendon and the bone. So here in the grade 0, you don't see much vascularity. Grade, sort of 1, you can see a little bit of tiny Doppler activity, and grade 3 and grade 4 much more increased vascularity. So what does this mean? So if you're a patient in grade 3 and grade 4, I would avoid using radial shockwave because that might be too painful. The key thing to remember is, one of the key take-home points I want to make it very clear is, although I use modality quite often, it's never should not be seen as a standalone modality. Shockwave is a safe modality which has been around for more than 40 years. It's used in various branches. So thank you for the opportunity with Physiotutors for this masterclass, and hope that it was a valuable use of your time in understanding and also to apply shockwave in clinical practice. Thank you.